My name is Darren Royston. I'm the Artistic Director of Nonsuch History and Dance, and I'm here to introduce our video on our production of the Dance of the Deadly Sins. This was a dance that we staged with support from the Arts Council of England. The project first began when Dr. David Sanchez-Caño gave an academic paper at the European Association of Dance Historians Conference, which was in Spain, in Seville, in 2010. Now, myself and Penelope Boff set about to find ways to reconstruct the play, and in the process we found that we ended up with a new creation by 2014, when we performed this at the Big Dance Festival in London and the International Medieval Congress in Leeds and at the National Centre for Early Music in York. So since then, the project has been ongoing with Nonsuch, using material to create summer courses, residencies, workshops, community projects in both UK, Spain, and with the European Association of Dance Historians in Belfast, and also working with the UNESCO International Dance Council at the World Dance Congress in Athens. For this Midsummer Virtual Festival, Nonsuch is offering a participatory workshop when you can come to explore some of the material, work with some of the performers, and be part of a new dance, in fact, an interpretation of a historical dance, a procession of the sins to La España, a Spanish bass dance. Now, in preparation for this, I was in conversation with David Sanchez-Caño, who first suggested the potential of this script to be interpreted today. David was in Morocco while I was here in Bangkok, Thailand.
So, David, what can you tell us about the play, The Dance of the Deadly Sins?
The Dance of the Seven Sins, Danza de los Siete Pecados in the original Spanish, is a play that we find in a book of which there is only one single copy, published in Seville in 1554. And it's a collection in verse by the bachiller Diego Sanchez de Badajoz. It was published by his nephew. About the author, Diego Sanchez de Badajoz, we know almost nothing, except that he had the first university degree, a bachiller, that he was a priest in a town called Talavera la Real, which is close to Badajoz. That's in southwestern Spain, very close to the Portuguese border. So it was very much on the margins of Spanish society. And he was there between 1443 and 1449, serving as a priest from church records. And he must have died there before 1552. And this book contains 28 plays called farsas in Spanish, and one dance, our Dance of the Seven Sins. And as far as we can tell, they all roughly dated to the second quarter of the 16th century. They were written for religious celebrations, mainly for Corpus Christi, but also for Christmas and for Easter and for specific saints' days. And they were written with the idea of religious indoctrination. And they were performed in front of the cathedral in open spaces, not on stages or in theaters, and in squares, and maybe even from wagons that might have been decorated, like in the Corpus Christi processions. And they were aimed at mainly probably at the rural population from the surrounding area that would flock to the city for religious celebrations and for markets and for partying, etc.
Can you tell us about the dancing? How do we know about the dancing in the play?
Well, in this written play, there are a lot of instructions for dancing. Each one of the seven cardinal sins is personified as a woman and referred to in gender, but we don't know if it was performed by a man. And then the stage instructions are specific. You know, she comes in, she gives her turn, she trips the main character, which is Adam. And in one specific one, it says she plays the castanets with her arms upraised. And
so we know there was music, but we don't know what the music was.
Right. There's no reference to any, of course, to any composer, to anything, or even to any type of form, song form, a villancico, a folia, whatever. It's not mentioned at all. But we can imagine that the music was improvised and they knew what to dance.
And do you
I
think
mean,
it was a new? Do you think it was a new play, or do you think it was based on traditions?
I think it was based on tradition, and it probably reflects traditions that were not just there in Badajoz, but around other parts of Spain and Europe too. And it draws on a rich tradition, the medieval dance of death, where we have visual records where the whole strata of society, from the Pope all the way down the social ladder to the poorest person, would be dancing hand in hand because they were led by death.
So, the first sin that dances with Adam is pride. What follows is an excerpt of this dance performed by Faye Morn and Dylan Lincoln. Now, the choreography is based on the Basque dance music and historical descriptions of patterns and sequences from these dances.
And who's in the play?
This play has three types of characters. First is the shepherd, which leads in the players probably into a square and pushes away the people, comments on the action and functions in between the audience and the action. Then we have Adam, who dances, Adam as the ancestor of man, who dances in turn with personifications of each of the 7 cardinal sins, gluttony, sloth, avarice, etc. And each sin trips him up, makes him fall on the ground. Or when he dances with gluttony, he simply falls down to the ground from the weight of so much gluttony.
Does he
At
survive?
the end, he repents and is happy.
So he repents.
He survives and he repents.
For the next dance, the dance of anger, I chose to create a new choreography, which is to dance music of an estampille, la carte estampille royale, and the character of Anger was played by Penelope Boff. So you see how each sin attacks Adam at the end of her dance. Now, each of the characters is introduced in the text with speech that they speak. Each sin has a stanza of poetry. Now, this new script was created through workshops at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London, with a final version produced by MA Text and Performance graduate Saad Sultan. Now, the words are based on the Spanish text, but developed into modern English verse. And it creates a debate between the Good Shepherd, who I played, and each sin who comes to persuade Adam to dance. Now, here is an excerpt of the dance of Avarice, and you see the dialogue between her and the Good Shepherd. And Avarice is played by Carol Griffiths.
Now, he's assailed by Avarice, the dog.
A hound, for I protect all the goods I have ever found, keeping them safely buried underground, not taking for granted they're always abound. So, pay no heed to these critics around. They wrong me. My philosophy is sound.
In her, digestion doesn't reach completion. She retains everything, even excretion.
Out, I am preparing for drought. This is my property. Don't prowl about. All is mine from north to south, east to west. But I'm not selfish. You may keep the rest. But I will brook no more intrusion. I must turn all real things to illusion.
So, each of the sins has their time to dance with Adam. And at the end of the play, Adam repents from all the sins. But before this, we added a totally new creation to the piece, which was a fantasia. Adam is asleep and the sins invade his sleep in a nightmare sequence. And for that, we had new music inspired by the tunes and motifs of each character, but taken into a trance-like state, which we had music composed by world music expert Peter Culshaw. Now, Peter is involved in creating new music. He's currently based in London, and he joined me on Zoom to explain a little bit about how we created totally new music, but inspired by historical research. So, Peter, how did you compose the music to the Fantasia?
Well, I wanted to get some ecstatic trance elements in the music, and thinking about what it might be, when I came across this music in Fez called Isawa music, it had similar elements, and it could be traced back centuries. It's a sort of street ecstatic music using these big horns and drums. And then I found this musicologist called René Brunel. He talked about the furious tempest of drums and oboes and everyone going into trance. This was back in the 1920s, and it's obviously gone back centuries. So that was the initial idea, using these rhythms of the Isawa mixed with the instrumentation as far as we could work out from the time, to give and I wrote it electronically, and then it was arranged for real musicians.
So, this music, this fantasia, this nightmare is broken when Adam wakes and repents his sins. He turns his back on sin, having learnt from the dancing experience with each of these women. Now, in the original text of the play, the characters are referred to as women, and Adam is seen as the first man ever created on the earth, although there is no mention of his partner, Eve. The age-old story tells us that Eve will be able to tempt him, but in the 2014 production at the National Centre for Early Music in York, we left this idea hanging in the air. Here is our final excerpt, and please join us at the workshop where we can talk more about how we can interpret historical dances with dramatic character. Thanks for watching.
Dance is done. The music ends. Adam is saved and makes amends. The sins released, and Adam reprieved. So now the time has come to leave.
Hartig Ensemble is a Czech freelance company of professional dancers who devote themselves to reenactment of works from early Renaissance to pre-Romantic era. We collaborate very closely with the Department of Dance of Academy of Performing Arts in Prague, where I read lectures on history of dance and ballet. I have founded this ensemble in 1997 and named it after Count Hartig, who organized here the first music assemblies in this Baroque palace where we rehearse. Most dancers have diploma from the academy. As first in Czech Republic, we started to reenact the Baroque dances from authentic sources, that is the Beauchamp-Feuillet notation, and those dances form the base of our repertory still today. Ballroom dances, but also theatrical, demanding virtuoso solos and duets. We perform them in concert programs and also in Baroque operas. As a dance historian, I like to find links in development of techniques and styles. And so we have widened our scope to what was before Baroque and what came after it. Since 2007, we have staged many ballets from the 18th century. This would not be possible without collaboration with musicians, especially Musica Florea Orchestra, led by Marek Štrinzl. Dance is an integral part of our culture. It is a memory of mankind. We hope to perform new works, but using the aesthetic qualities of the past. And we hope that this will bring joy to many people all over the world.
Hello, my name is Catherine Tarosi, and I'm the artistic director of the New York Baroque Dance Company. I've been asked to speak about opera ballet and putting it back on the stage in a period production. I have a lot of experience because I've done over 80 productions of opera ballets over the years. This particular video is going to be looking at our production from 2017, which we did with Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra and Chorale. The conductor was Nicholas McGeegan. The work is Le Temple de la Gloire by Jean-Philippe Rameau, and the librettist was Voltaire. In this talk, you'll be seeing excerpts from our rehearsal video, and I chose that because it has a sort of a full-on look at the stage. It's not like from different angles, so we can talk about the opera staging as well as the choreography. You may see somebody walking across. Also, you hear a little bit of talking, and that would be me talking with our lighting designer, Pierre Dupuis, about certain points of lighting. But I wanted to use this slide to illustrate the use of period gesture and pose, making sure that when you are using this iconography, that it has a sense of life about it, a sense of drama and tension that plays not just good against evil, but also there's a play with the groupings of the people, with the groupings of the muses together towards Apollo, being with the women who are guarding the arts. They're being actually protected by Apollo with his spear. And then the dancer heroes are getting the demons off the stage. I decided to use masks, especially in the prologue, because that was the convention of the time. And it gives a certain power to the dancers and to the muses, because the audience tends to watch their movement in a different way than if they did not have the masks on. And that's actually a whole nother presentation about the use of the mask. Then the costumes have to be very clear for the audience to understand the story that is being told. Next slide, Julia. Here you can get a sense of what the period design looked like. As I said before, where you see Apollo standing and you see the muses standing in front of the set, those are all hard cut out pieces. But the backdrop is not a painted backdrop. The backdrop is a projection. Economically, this did save quite a bit, not having to produce the backdrops, but just changing the legs and the hard scenery at the sides. The lighting by Pierre is working to imitate period paintings. So it's not a harsh light, but it's something that's created to give an advantageous look to the costumes and to the masks. And in this instance, we used a mix of period costuming, such as Apollo, and the ancient costumes as seen in paintings of Poussin, which are the tunics that the women are wearing. Here, I wanted to use an idea of the 18th century that had to do with the harmony of the spheres. So you can see the muses on the backdrop. That's actually a projection of the dance that's being done. So it's a live video projection of the muses dancing. They each have their allegorical prop, which is very common at the time. But the dancer who's the muse of music is always carrying the harp, and you also have the muse of architecture, and so you have to have the allegorical prop will actually help them, and the relationship with that prop will help them tell the story. Oddly, because the stage wasn't raked, it worked really well to have this projection of the muses. And as I said before, it's kind of referring to the sense of the harmony of the spheres and the idea that if the choreography on Earth echoes the movement of the planets and the stars in the heavens, that we can build this channel to bring the energy from the divine to the earth. And this is something that happens in a lot of operas. Once the war is done, or once envy has been defeated or the demons have been defeated, the muses come out to bring culture back to the world. So in our Act 1 video clip, we begin with the danced entrance of the shepherds and shepherdesses. The score does not identify who is dancing when, nor does it state the purpose of the dance. Hence, this gives me the freedom to devise my own story within the drama. I created a special role for Caroline Copeland and thought of her as the dancing Marie Sallet, but originally starred in this act. Caroline is the shepherdess, constantly distracted by her own love of the dance, as she breaks away from the group in the second musette to offer us a solo. She continues this role of the individual voice throughout Act 1, gently commenting on the action with a curious innocence. I feel dancers can add a lot to the staging when seen as individuals with their own backstory. Following the rules of Menestrier and Noverre, I create a moving painting with the performers, and the movement for dancers and singers is determined by the storytelling. The performers enter in a serpentine path. The entrance dance is followed by a recit from Lydie, who is seeking political asylum with these shepherds and shepherdesses. In the text of the chorus that follows, please note that the chorus is off stage left, and they're not acting in the opera. So the dancers consult with each other about this question of Lydie to join the group. And I have a kind of a telephone line going from one person to the next person, so you'll see that as you watch the clip. And it ends with the singer. The singer steps forward and says, "Yes, you can stay with us." In watching the next dance, the music in watching the next dance music, actually, you can witness how the staging of the shepherds and shepherdesses embrace Lydie as part of their community. In the video clip from our rehearsal, watch carefully and look at this dance, which portrays joy, but also has a sense of the storytelling around the dance. You'll see the dancers meeting Lydie and some hanging out with her, and then others continuing to dance. The flow of the scene connects the story, so it flows from the sung text into the nonverbal text, which is the dance, which advances the drama. All decisions for the stage direction and choreography come from the context of storytelling. My strength as a stage director and choreographer comes from a craft of designing every musical phrase as a choreography, which is sometimes sung and sometimes danced. Before our rehearsal period begins, the singers and dancers read through the text of the opera with me as if it were a play. We work on how to support each other and how to define the focus of each scene. The characters of the shepherds and shepherdesses are they're all in the same costume for both the singers and the dancers. And this is because if you look back into the productions and you look in the old programs from 1745 or 1750, you see the characters listed, and it's the singer characters and the dancer characters. So it's like now we have the shepherds and shepherdesses come in, and then they divide those into singers or dancers. The main thing is that they are all the same. So in this case, I have singers and dancers dressed in the same costumes. And I would just like to underscore that because it's shepherds and shepherdesses, I wanted to use not the noble style, but more a style of dance which looked folk-like or ethnic-like, country-like. When we get to the second act, there's a wonderful contrast with the first act in that Act 2 brings out the orgiastic chaos and pleasure. The contrast is with the exaggeration of the body leanings and the use of the pelvis as the center of weight for the body, as opposed to the higher center of weight when you're in a more noble state. The use of improvisation was a lot of fun to work with, and it was a little bit more comedic with our woodsmen and bacots. So there was one aria where it was quite long, and I created a complete improvisational structure, so it was different every night. But it did add to the spontaneity of Bacchus. And we also sort of introduced the sense of the exotic by using the ostrich, and you'll see the ostrich, which was Maggie Sweeney Smith, who was one of our dancers inside the ostrich. The ostrich could dance, the ostrich could move its mouth, it could observe things that were going on. But at this point, you know, after you get to almost like 2 hours of watching an opera, it's nice to have a little break with something unusual. There's also the allegorical figures of Mars and Venus, and believe it or not, this particular opera asks for the followers of Mars and the followers of Venus. But as I said before, we didn't have the chorus on stage, and we didn't have enough dancers to take this role on. So I just used the music purely for Venus, played by Maggie Sweeney Smith, and Mars, played by Andrew Trago. And after going through a fencing match, finally they both win and embrace. And this does predict which way the war will turn, which is in favor of Trajan. Whenever possible, I like to use conventions found in ceremonies of the day. So again, this particular dance was not labeled as a flag dance, but as you can see with the dancer on the left, Ulcie Jesse, that we did have two men waving and jumping around and doing beautiful maneuvers with the flags as a sort of a fanfare for the crowning of Trajan. Here, there was a role. These characters were the youth of the future, and this is where I was able to employ the ballet dancers from the Berkeley School. And again, with the maypole, I'm always trying to bring in some kind of ritual or traditional dance into the opera that gives it more of an authentic feeling from the time. The traditional end of an opera, a ballet, or a ball is the contra dance, where all the people dance with each other, meaning the singers, the dancers, and the extras. And here, all the different characters dance with each other because they all appear again at the end. This, in a way, is a sort of a period nod to ending something and saying we're ending on a happy note, we're all together, and it's a very sort of social feeling before the doors open and everybody goes out into their own life again. I'd like to thank you all very much for your attention. And if you have any questions about our other productions, please do visit our website. You can always get in touch with me by email if you have specific questions about this production. And I would like to thank again Philharmonia Baroque for giving us the permission to use these photographs and to use our rehearsal video to just give you a little bit of insight into how we put this together. Thank you very much. And thank you, Julia Bankston. She's a dancer with our company. Thank you, Julia, for helping. I really appreciate it. Farewell.